Hello YouTube, Jonas Wayfield here once again, right back. Remember last time I reviewed the Super Nintendo, right? Okay, well, remember how next time I said I was gonna review the Genesis? Well, that's what I'm here to do. Review the Super Nintendo's biggest competitor of all time. In fact, this competitor was so big, not only was it killed by the Super Nintendo, it also killed the Super Nintendo. So, it was the only consoles ever to do that to each other. The Sega Genesis. Where to start out? In my last video, I did say I had a Super Nintendo. I also have a Genesis. Model 2 Genesis, in fact. I do not have a Model 1, nor do I have a Model 3. Sadly, I do not have a 32X or a Sega CD with that either. So, I've never played on either of them, so I really have almost no room to review those. However, I will mention them because they are worth mentioning. The Genesis had some games of its own. It had, the most obvious would be Sonic the Hedgehog. That was Sega's main character, like Mario was to Nintendo. It also had Rystar, Altered Beast. It had Streets of Rage, Shinobi, all that. Yeah, it had games like that. All of which were great games. Some of the best of the 16-bit era. Sonic was another game that I really liked. Sonic 2 was one of my favorite games of all time. I don't know which one I like better between that or Super Godzilla. They're both great games, and I'll probably give you my answer in the Genesis versus Nintendo video. So, aside from that, let's begin reviewing. The console came out early 90s because the NES was a monster and could not be stopped, so they thought they could one-up Nintendo, and that's what they did, and they killed the NES, but then had to fight the Super Nintendo in the biggest gaming war of all time, and it will always be remembered for that. Anyways, Super Nintendo, never mind, not gonna say anything because I'm really tempted to, but I'm not going to, so. Alright. So, it's just Genesis from here on out, that's it. Its controllers were, they had a D-pad, 3 buttons, a start and select button, no L and R or anything like that. They were slightly advanced, more advanced than previous consoles like the Atari or the NES. Yeah, they weren't too far ahead. Now, the second Genesis controller that came out, there was a second one, had more buttons on it. I don't know exactly what was different about it because I did not have this controller. I've only seen pictures of it. So, that controller was updated from the original one. So, yeah. That's basically all I have about the controller. Now, about the console itself. The Model 1 Genesis is the one that's most recognized. It had 16-bit on it. It's just the biggest of the 3 consoles. It was compatible with the CD and the 32X with attachments needed. Meaning, there need to be like metal insertions, all that. The Model 2 Genesis, the one I had, was meant to go with 32X and Sega CD. Just slip right in. The Model 3 Genesis had a 3 on it and was really small. I'm not sure if you could do a 32X and Sega CD or if that stuff was just kind of built in. I don't have too much knowledge on that, but yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog, biggest character on there. Yeah. So that's all I have to say about the Sega Genesis. What am I gonna review next time? I don't know. Either one of the PlayStation consoles or the NES. If you're wondering if I'm going to review the Xbox or the Wii definitely, the Xbox I'm not sure about. But in the meantime, goodbye, YouTube.